Thank you to Acorns for sponsoring this video. Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today we're going to be building the best $1,000 gaming PC in 2023. So this beauty right here, $1,000, I really think this is it. If you're looking for a gaming PC that isn't gonna break the bank, is going to kill it in terms of gaming performance and also content creation while still looking pretty good at the same time, like a computer that's twice its value, I really think this is it. We've got some of the latest and greatest components from the PC market to stuff into this $1,000 gaming PC build, and I'm gonna be showing you how to put it together step by step, how to set up Windows, drivers, then its 1440p gaming performance, and we'll finish out the video with my closing thoughts on this $1,000 gaming PC build. So as usual, if you want the best prices possible on these components, then I recommend you shop at your local Microcenter if you're near one, or if you're not, then I have links for you guys who are either international or not near one, all in the description below. And with that, let's get started. I'm always trying to find ways to invest in my future, whether that be through big steps or even small steps like investing. But the problem with that is there's a lot to keep up with in the world of stock trading, seeing which stocks are performing the best and which stocks to absolutely stay away from. And a lot of that can be very time consuming and stressful. But fortunately, there is an app out there that can minimize all of that for you in an automated process that is simple and easy to use, that being Acorns. Acorns helps you save and invest for your future with portfolios that are diversified by Acorns, customized by you, and you can allow Acorns to automatically diversify your whole portfolio. And the best part is, like I said earlier, Acorns can let you put money into these investments as an automated process, even just starting with spare change. But let's say you want to learn more about the world of investing, and if that's the case, then fortunately, Acorns can offer you some handy tools and guidance, including access to premium education, expert-led bite-sized courses, interactive quizzes, videos, and more. So if you want an easy way to get started with your investing journey, then I think Acorns could be a great option for that. And if that's the case, then please use the link in the description below to see how you can learn more about investing with Acorns. So to build this computer, all you're gonna need is a banana, a pair of scissors to cut anything open, and an 8GB or bigger flash drive to install Windows onto this gaming PC once you're finished building it. And I have a video tutorial linked in the description showing you how to create one of these for free. But now with this, let's go ahead and actually get to building. For the motherboard, we're gonna be using the Gigabyte B650M DS3H. Now, this motherboard, you don't technically need it. Any B650 micro ATX motherboard will work in this PC build, like the ASRock B650M HDV. That's the motherboard I actually recommend for this build guide, but unfortunately when I went to Microcenter, it wasn't in stock, but that is fine because this will do just as good of a job. So this is a really stylish looking motherboard, and we're gonna be pairing with it an AMD Ryzen 5 7600. Now I would like to add, you are welcome to try out the 7600X. Which is basically a juiced up 7600, but it doesn't come with one of these. It doesn't come with a stock cooler, unlike the 7600. So if you plan to use an aftermarket CPU cooler in this build, whether it be an air cooler or a water cooler, then I really recommend the 7600. But if you wanted to save yourself money and just stick it to a stock cooler, then the 7600 is also just gonna be fine. Now inside the motherboard box, we should have this little piece of paper here, which points to a QR code which contains the motherboard manual for our Gigabyte motherboard. So if you had any questions on where goes what on the motherboard, please refer to the manual. It'll tell you where to plug in what. If you're not, say, watching this tutorial video, we're gonna need this. This is an IO shield. SATA cables, don't need this. And we don't need any of these additional little screws here. Now, one thing I am gonna point out real quick for those of you who haven't already noticed, this motherboard doesn't come with any onboard Wi-Fi, which is not a deal breaker because you could use this, say, with your router with an Ethernet cable from, say, plugging in an Ethernet port here with an Ethernet cable straight to your router, which is totally fine. But if you need Wi-Fi, that's where you're gonna want a Wi-Fi card like this one from Asus. Really, any Wi-Fi 6 PCI Wi-Fi card is gonna do fine because we'll put it right here below the graphics card. And with that, let's go ahead and install the processor onto the motherboard. So step one is to take your Phillips head screwdriver and unscrew these 4 screws that are holding down these 2 black brackets on your AM5 backplate. And now with that done, let's go ahead and unlock this latch right here, pull this up, take your Ryzen 5 7600 or 7600X and locate the triangle on the top left of the CPU, like we can see right here with this little marking on the top left, and line it up with this little triangle on the top left of the CPU socket. That'll tell you how to put it in correctly. So go ahead and line it up with your socket, drop it in, and if you think it's in, give it a little jiggle, and if that's all good, put this down, close down the clamp, this should pop off, and well, bam. All right, and now for RAM, we're gonna be using 32 gigabytes of DDR5 memory from Team Group, and this is running at 5600 megahertz with a cache latency of 32. I don't have much more to say. 32 gigs, you're gonna be set with this gaming PC. That's more than enough for gaming. And 5600 megahertz at a cache latency of 32 is a pretty good speed to cache latency ratio that should give us good performance for gaming. Then for our SSD choice, I'm actually going a little bit old school, but that's nothing to worry about. I'm going with the Samsung 970 EVO Plus. This is a PCI Gen 3.0 SSD, which I know sounds a little weird, but the reason why I'm going with it is because it's a Samsung drive that contains DRAM and is TLC. So although it's a little bit older, the actual memory on this is really high quality. And at the end of the day, are you really gonna notice an M.2 SSD with like 3000 megabytes of read speed versus one with like 7000? You're not. So rather you invest in a high quality drive now that just has good reliability and a good warranty, like this Samsung one. So to install this, go ahead and get your Phillips head 1 screwdriver, which should be a little bit smaller than a regular Phillips head screwdriver. And we'll go ahead and remove this little piece from the motherboard so we can install our M.2 SSD. Now what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna remove one of these peels right here, which we're gonna go with this top one right here. Set that aside, take our Samsung 970 EVO Plus. As you can see, there's a little notch here on the M.2 SSD that'll line up with this insert on the actual connection. Line the 2 up, press it in, click it in, easy. Then go ahead and take your M.2 heatsink, line this back up with the holes, and screw this back in. Then to install our RAM, I'm gonna want you to open up slots A2 and B2 on your motherboard. There should be some little writings right here to the left of the RAM slots, just so you make sure you open up these 2 slots here that are farthest from the CPU socket. Ignore these 2. And as you can see, these 2 inserts here on the RAM are different sizes for the slots on the motherboard, so this will only go in one way. So just use trial and error. Once you think you have it in, give it a firm press, and we'll repeat the same right here. Like I said, if you have the regular 7600, then I recommend you use the stock cooler. But if you're gonna use the 7600X, or if you want something that looks a little bit fancier in your PC case, then again, you're welcome to pick up an aftermarket cooler like this Thermalright Frozen Prism 240 White. So if you have a 7600X, go ahead and install your aftermarket CPU cooler backplate onto your motherboard or the little mounting thing. Otherwise, we're gonna go ahead and show you how to install this. So line up the 4 screws with the 4 holes here on the socket, put it in. I recommend having the logo onto the left side of the motherboard, not on the right so it doesn't interfere with the RAM. Then take your Phillips head screwdriver, screw in one side a little bit so it makes contact, then diagonally screw that in, screw this in. And once you've made contact to all parts of the motherboard backplate, then let's go ahead and fully screw in each of these sides so we have equal pressure across the CPU. And then the last thing I want you to do is to plug in your CPU fan cable into where it says CPU fan on the motherboard. Easy. This should go in one way because of this little insert here. There you go. All right, now let's go ahead and put the motherboard into the PC case. But before we do that, of course, we have to open up the PC case. And this is a cube style case from GIM. Forgot the name of it. I think it's literally called like Micro ATX dual chamber case. But to open this up, remove the top panel, and then you're gonna wanna slide this up. And now you have access to the inside of the PC case here, which includes a manual. So if you are at all confused on where goes where in this PC case, you have a manual here. But we're gonna need some more stuff from this PC case in order to actually build the computer. If you're wondering where all the screws you'll need to screw in like the motherboard, the power supply, and whatever else into your PC case, that can be found usually in the back side of any PC case, including this one. So we've got this little baggie right here. Let's go ahead and remove this. All right, here's a baggie that contains all the screws we'll need to install everything into this PC case. So we've got some like cable management, Velcro things right here, don't need that, but what we need is this guy. This includes, once again, all the screws and standoffs we'll need for this PC build. And with that, now let's go ahead and install the motherboard. All right, first thing I wanna do is to take out your IO shield and let's put this right here. So you have one side with sticky bits poking out and one side that's flat. And you want the flat side facing the outside of your PC case. So bring this here. Press this into the four corners and that should be it. Then go ahead and drop down your motherboard and this should be pretty straightforward. Once again, you can kind of line it up with the IO shield to make sure you have it right. Press it in as well. There we go. And once again, this is a micro ATX PC case. We have a micro ATX motherboard. All the standoffs are already covered, which is great. So we're gonna use these screws you see here on screen, and we'll go ahead and screw these into the standoffs one by one. Now, important note, screw these in kind of halfway, but not completely, because once we get all of these in initially, then we'll go ahead and tighten down each side of the motherboard. All right, and with this final standoff, let's go ahead and screw this in completely. Go to the adjacent corner of that, screw this in completely so it's tightened up, go across from it, tighten this one up completely. Kind of see where I'm getting at, it's a little bit of a crisscross pattern. Kind of like the CPU cooler, we want to do this, that way we maintain equal pressure on all sides of the motherboard, like that. Now, one thing with this PC case is that it doesn't come with any case fans, and for a $1,000 PC build, you're gonna need some. So for the moment, I've got these two RGB fans from Thermalright to match our AIO, and for this configuration, since we're eventually gonna swap out this stock cooler with a 240mm AIO cooler, we're gonna put one fan here on the side, right there, and another one on top. But let's say you wanted to keep the stock cooler with just the regular 7600, then I recommend putting an exhaust fan on top and then an intake one here on the side, right where your graphics card is. Or you can get two more of these fans, put another one here, put another one here, and be set. So to install this is pretty simple. With every PC case fan you'll come across that is RGB, there's gonna be two different connections on it. This 4-pin connector here that's gonna plug into a regular system fan header on your PC motherboard, and then an RGB header. Now what's cool about both of these is that these are able to do a daisy chain. So you can hook up another fan into this connector here and run two fans off of a single cable. And same goes for RGB. You can run multiple fans here by daisy chaining them and then having them run to your motherboard with a single cable. And that's gonna make this whole process way simpler. Now I know what you're thinking, install the power supply, but we don't wanna do that yet because there's all this front IO we need to install on the bottom of the motherboard first before we put this in, because if we put it in the power supply first, we cut off all of our access from these little inserts here on the bottom of the PC case where you can thread our different cables and make everything nice. So let's go ahead and take care of all of this in the back of the PC case, and then we'll plug in the power supply, then put in the graphics card and the Wi-Fi card, and then finally boot up the computer. So let's go ahead and install our USB 3.0 header. We flip this around. There's a little notch here on the top of the connector that's gonna line up with this insert on the actual connection. Line the two up. It's gonna only go in one way, easy. Then let's go ahead and plug in our front IO. Now, if you're confused on how to do this, please refer to your motherboard manual and check out the spot where it tells you how to plug in the front IO. This will go in a certain way. And really, as long as you take your time with this and you follow the diagram, then you should be all right. But this is gonna go here on the bottom left of the motherboard, and it's gonna be HDD LED on the bottom left 2 pins. The 2 power LEDs are gonna go above the HDD LED. And the reset switch, I think, is controlling the RGB in this PC case, which is why we don't have it on us. And the power switch is gonna go next to the 2 power LEDs on the top right. Pull that back, and there you go. The next that is our USB 2.0 connector, which is gonna go into one of these two ports here on the bottom middle of the motherboard. So you can see there's one pin right here where there isn't anything, and on the connector it's blank. So this will only go in one way, pretty easy, like that. And then finally we have our HD audio connector here. This is gonna go on the bottom left of the motherboard. This again will only go in one way. Really can't mess this up. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So as you guys may have noticed, I already went ahead and installed the AIO for this PC just because, again, I didn't want to bother putting in the power supply and then having to unscrew it because of all of these cables right here we need access to. But as you'll see, there's a lot of them, but don't worry, all these are pretty much ARGB cables and fan header cables for our AIO and these two side fans. And the good part is, despite how complex this looks, like I said earlier, you can daisy chain all of this. So this is gonna be pretty simple. So as long as you can keep track of your start and ends of each of your daisy chains for the fan headers and for the RGB, then you should be able to figure this out pretty all right. Okay, so this is our pump right here. This is our first ARGB connection. Let's go ahead and plug this up with this connector right here. Move this little tab, connect the two together. There we go. Let's keep that going. Here's the other ARGB connection for this. Let's go ahead and plug that in as well. Then we have our two fans here to the side. So let's go ahead and plug in the RGB from those into this single daisy chain. There we go. And we've got this last fan right here. We're gonna go ahead and plug in. And then lastly, there's actually some RGB on the front of our PC case from this header right here. So let's not forget to also plug this in as well. It uses the same connector as these, which is a 5 volt. We'll plug this end into here, and here's all of our RGB strung together. And the side we're gonna use to plug into our motherboard is this female end right here, which we'll go ahead and set aside for the moment. Now right here are the 3 fans from our pump and our 2 fans on the top of our AIO. Again, if you're working with a stock CPU cooler from AMD, you don't have to worry about this step, but if you are using this, we have this controller right here, and this will go into certain connections. So PWM FG, that is for the pump, that I believe is this one, and then the 2 AIO fans are gonna go right next to it like so. So we have all of our AIO connected into this single hub, which will then output to the motherboard with this. And then lastly, here are our 2 spare case fans on the side of the GIM Micro ATX case. This, of course, we can daisy chain, so plug this into here. Both are now a single connector, and we'll eventually plug this into a fan header on the motherboard. So to recap, this is for our AIO, this is gonna hook up all of our RGB, and this is gonna hook up 2 of our side case fans to a single connector. Let's go ahead and plug those in. So let's go ahead and take care of our RGB first. So if you have everything daisy chained into this single connector from your AIO to your case fans to the additional RGB on the front of the PC case, should just be able to plug this into this 5 volt RGB header that is 3 pins. This will only go in one way, like that. And then right here is our fan header for the 2 side case fans that are daisy chained together. We're gonna put this on this fan header here on the bottom of the motherboard. Doesn't matter really where you put it. And then lastly, we're gonna plug in our CPU fan header that controls the AIO fans and the pump into where it says CPU fan. And this once again is being controlled through that hub just for this AIO. If you have a stock AMD CPU cooler, then this should already be plugged in just like that. Now we can finally put in the power supply, which is why I want to save it to the end because we have all these cables right here. But anyways, I've chosen this Zalman Gigamax 700 watt 80 plus bronze power supply. You don't need this exact power supply in order to make the PC build work, but this one's pretty nice because it's for a good price and it's actually a pretty decent unit. Now, to my understanding, the 700 unit isn't always available, but the 600 watt unit is. And don't worry, if you have to settle for the 600 watt version of this power supply, it's still gonna be plenty of power, but I decided to go with the 700 watt because it wasn't stock, picked it up, and it was only like $7 more. Now note, you're given a power supply cable in the box with the power supply, so have this on hand for later, including 4 case screws that we'll need to screw in the power supply into the PC case, which let's go ahead and take care of that now. So kind of pull these out of the way. You want the fan side facing the rear side panel, so have this facing outward. Make sure you got room. Okay, that's actually better than I thought. Line this up with the rear of the PC case. There we go. So we've already got everything else plugged in. just except for the power supply cables, which we'll take care of now. But to take control of this little like built-in RGB controller or whatever that is for this PC case right here, we gotta use a SATA power connector, which you can go ahead and take from your power supply, and we'll just plug this in like so. So let's go ahead and plug in our motherboard power connector into this big connection right here on the motherboard. Can't miss it. This will only go in a certain way. There's a little notch here on the connector that'll line up with this notch. Make sure this is fully inserted into the motherboard. There you go. So here with this split connector, this is your CPU power cable. We're gonna plug this into the top left of the motherboard. Once again, there's a little latch here on the connector. It's gonna line up with the notch on the motherboard connection. And this will only go in one way. There you go. Make sure that that is all the way in there. And then lastly, here's our PCIe power cable. Just have this hanging out on the inside of the PC case, because we'll go ahead and address that once we plug in the Wi-Fi card and then the graphics card. So once again, this motherboard doesn't come with Wi-Fi, so unless you're using a PC right next to your router where you can plug in an Ethernet cable from your router into the back of your PC case, you're probably gonna need a Wi-Fi adapter. And for that, I recommend a PCIe one from like Asus or whatever. Use whatever brand you want. This is gonna go right underneath the graphics card in this PCI slot here, which, by the way, is the Radeon RX 6700 XT. And this is, right now, the best value graphics card you can buy brand new. At $330, the performance you can get out of this brand new graphics card, if you've seen my tier list videos, is SS tier. It's really good. I'd say the used market, 9 times out of 10, is gonna offer better bang for your buck, even with the downsides of getting a used graphics card. That is, unless you're gonna buy a brand new 6700 XT, because it comes with 12 gigabytes of VRAM, can easily do 1440p gaming, has a great power to efficiency ratio, and just about the only downside I can think of is that this doesn't come with the AV1 codec if you want to take advantage of that next generation codec for content creation and streaming. But the AMD Relive that is in here isn't too bad either. So if that is a deal breaker for you, then there are other graphics cards out there that can do that for you. But the performance you can get out of this 6700 XT is just simply too good to pass up. And for the money that it's selling for, brand new, we have to go with it. Anyways, you don't need this exact 6700 XT. You can choose one from XFX, Gigabyte, Asus, MSI, ASRock, Power Color. It really doesn't matter. But for this one, I've got this special edition from Sapphire. And before we plug this in, we gotta go ahead and take care of our Wi-Fi card. So before we put any of this into our PC case, as you can kind of see, we've got these tabs here that are covered up where our graphics card and PCI card need to be. So let's go ahead and unscrew this, remove that. And then we need to break off the tabs that our graphics card and Wi-Fi card are going to occupy. Yep, so just kind of bend this, come off. That is for our graphics card, and then for our Wi-Fi adapter, we gotta break off this bottom one. So first, let's go ahead and insert our Wi-Fi card. There we go. And then above it, let's go ahead and insert our graphics card. Into the topmost slot, have it lined up, and once you think you got it, give it a firm press and you should hear a click. And like that is all the way in. And while we're here, let's go ahead and plug in the power connector. All right, now let's go ahead and screw in our graphics card and our PCI Wi-Fi adapter with using the case screws that are found in the baggie with all the screws for this PC. Which, pro tip, these are the same screws that you used for your power supply. And just about the last thing we need to do is we gotta go ahead and screw in the antenna for our Wi-Fi adapter here. And finally, with that, we are all ready and set to boot up this PC for the first time. Finally, I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do that right now. Okay, so now let's go ahead and boot up the computer for the first time. And I did some modifications. We've got the AIO in there, the 2 fans, and I also went ahead and put in some power supply extension cables. These are all aesthetical modifications. You don't need every single one of these, but the 2 case fans you definitely need if you're sticking with a stock cooler. But the AIO, it's not required for a 7600, but it is required for, say, a Ryzen 7600X, which doesn't come with an included stock cooler. But still though, performing this first boot is gonna be the same either way you take it. So let's go ahead and plug in a mouse, plug in a keyboard, plug in a display cable from the monitor to your graphics card, not to where your motherboard is. Then if you remember, there is that power supply cable that came with your power supply. It's time to go ahead and put that into your power supply here on the back and into a wall outlet, and then flick the switch on the power supply from the 0 to the 1. And finally, here is our Windows 10 or 11 bootable media device. I'm gonna use Windows 11 for this tutorial, and if you wanna learn how to create one of these, like I said at the start of the video, I have a video linked in the description below showing you how to create one of these for free. And we're gonna plug this into a USB 3.0 port. We'll use one of the fronts, why not? And with that, let's go ahead and press the power button. As you can tell, the computer probably already works. Gotta let it boot up, do its thing, and then we should see a little circle here pop up on the monitor soon. Now, if you see a screen like this, just go ahead and proceed, whether that be like with the Y key on your keyboard or F1. Let it do its thing. It could power on, power off a few times. That's totally normal for a first time new system without Windows. There we are. All right, we've made it into the Windows installer. Let me show you what to do next. Okay, let me go ahead and show you how to install Windows. So hit next, install now. Here you can enter your Windows product key if you have one. I don't, and that's fine, so I'll click I don't have a product key. I'll choose Windows 11 Home. Doesn't matter which version you choose, but don't choose the ones that have N next to them. Accept, next, custom. There's your 1TB M.2 SSD, hit next, boom, you're done. Okay, now that we've downloaded Windows, let's go ahead and set it up. Hit yes, choose your country, add a second keyboard if you want. Now let's go ahead and connect to your internet. If you have a Wi-Fi card on your computer, like what I suggest, then you can go ahead and proceed with this. If you don't have a Wi-Fi card or have a USB Wi-Fi card lying around, then you have to go ahead and run an Ethernet cable from your computer to your router. If you're doing that method, you're actually really based because that's the fastest way to get internet on your gaming PC. But if you don't have that, once again, now's the time to hook up to your internet connection. All right, we're connected, let's proceed. Now here, you're welcome to name your device. I'm not gonna bother with that, so skip. Now here's where you need to sign into your Microsoft account if you have one, or if you don't, now it's time to create one. If you had an old Xbox Live account, then you're welcome to use this. Or you have a special like Gmail or Yahoo account you wanna use. Choose whichever one is gonna work with you the best and go ahead and sign in. Now if you're given this option, ignore it, hit view more options, set up as a new device, hit next. Now let's go ahead and create a PIN, and it can be whatever you want. I like to do ASDF. Now for all these privacy things, I turn them all off because there are extra processes running in the background that I just don't want. Then I skip all of this. Nope, 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 nope. And there we go. All right, so once you get into Windows, whether you have an Asus, ASRock, Gigabyte, or whatever motherboard, you should see a little message down here showing you to install some sort of control center. And I do recommend you do this because this is how you can easily manage all of your chipset drivers and utilities that are related to your motherboard, including RGB. So go ahead and let this run and do its thing. So once that finishes, let's go ahead and open that up. Make sure we installed the right things. Hit accept. Go here to the little arrows on the left. Now here we can go ahead and hit check. So after you hit check here, you can go ahead and see what software we can go ahead and install. And as you can see, some of the current versions aren't even installed because once again, this is a new computer. And I'd recommend installing everything except for Norton Internet Security. You don't need that. So let's hit install and let these run. And while that is running, let's go ahead and get our graphics card drivers ready to install. So to get started, go ahead and type in Radeon drivers into your search engine. Let's run that. And then go ahead and click on the AMD.com link. And here you're welcome to download the auto detect, but we already know what graphics card we have, which is a Radeon RX 6700 XT. So let's hit submit. Windows 11, that's the version we have. We'll go ahead and download the latest version. And we'll go ahead and let this open up once it finishes downloading. So while we have our chipset drivers installing in the background, let's go ahead and install those Radeon graphics card drivers. All right, so a bit of time has passed. As you can see, all of our little utilities and chipset drivers for our motherboard software has been installed. Our AMD graphics card drivers have now finished installing, and let's go ahead and restart our system and enter the BIOS to check on two more things. So go ahead and hold the delete key on your keyboard as your PC boots back up. And if it doesn't want to boot into the BIOS, then here's what you're gonna do. Go to your Windows search bar, type in Advanced Startup Settings, change Advanced Startup Options, Advanced Startup Restart Now, And now we can get into the BIOS. All right, go ahead and hit troubleshoot, advanced options, UEFI firmware settings, restart, and finally, you'll be able to enter the BIOS. All right, let's go ahead and enable AMD Expo. There we go, we have that set. Then let's go to advanced mode, settings, go to IO ports, and then here we can see if we have above 4G decoding enabled and resizable bar support is enabled. That is good, we need that. So now SAM is enabled on our system for maximum performance with our Ryzen processor and Radeon graphics card. And with that, now let's go ahead and save and exit. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play some Forza Horizon 5 for you guys on this $1,000 gaming PC at 1440p, ultra settings. We have AMD FSR 2.2 enabled at the quality preset and the FPS meters on the top right. If you like what you see, then fantastic. I gotta see if I can win this. Oh, look, okay, so we got a Bone Boss, AKA the Bone Shaker, Skyline R34, tryhard probably, and then an Alfa Romeo DTM card that just got unveiled. Oh, we gotta carry a lot more speed than that if we wanna win. All right, slipstream, slipstream. These guys are all using meta cars. Oh, I'm using the crappy controller today, aren't I? So brakes are gonna be kind of bad. Well, hey, I'm keeping up though. That's not too bad. All right, here's proof. I'm using the crappy controller. Not the really nice controller that I usually have. And there's the top speed deficit that I have, but I can probably take this pretty well. Oh, look at this speed we're gonna carry. Bone Boss suffering some skill issue, and I'm gonna pass him. Oh, whoa, on the inside, woo! And we're gonna cover, no, we can't cover that off. He's gonna come right past me. I'm gonna keep him kind of squeezed though a little bit, so I get the inside and keep that because of the downforce I got. And we're really gonna hammer it. We are really gonna hammer it. We were losing in the top speed, but we got downforce. That's saving us right now. All right, we gotta hit this braking zone, all right. Oh, that was too much. Way too much brakes. All right, it's not gonna be enough, but I'm pleased with that. Got a pass on the Bone Shaker, and that really upped the inside on the Alpha. And with a non-meta car, first race on the crappy controller too, I'll take it. Let's move to the next game. All right, we are here on Halo Infinite. Oh man, all right, let me go ahead and upgrade this to high settings. There we go. Now this looks the part. Anyways, this is Halo Infinite at 1440p, high settings. We have no VSync, no frame rate cap right now, and unfortunately our frame rate software isn't cooperating right now, so we do have the dinky little Steam in-game FPS overlay just to go off of, which my editor is gonna blow up for you guys so you can see. There we go, easy peasy. But right now we're getting about 100 frames per second, which at high settings 1440p, I'll take. Oh, but not that though. I'm not gonna die against AI because that would be very embarrassing. Anyways, the game is running smooth. I'm really enjoying this right now. Just like these easy kills, but I know I'm playing against AI, but I just need a match. There we go. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and close out the benchmarks with Cyberpunk 2077, and I've chosen a specific game 70 actually for this highlight, and that is because we are gonna be rocking the game at ray tracing low settings, because yes, we have a 6700 XT in this build, but still, you could do ray tracing with it. Also note, we do have AMD Fidelity FX set on auto right now, which I'm just gonna roll with that right now. And for the FPS, well, like I said, in Halo Infinite, our software isn't working right now, so I do have the little Steam overlay on the top right, and we're getting just above 60 frames per second. However, though, I'd like to let you know that this game will soon be replaced by Starfield when that game eventually comes out next month, because we need a new, really graphically taxing AAA game. But come on, you've got a 6700 XT with 12 gigs of VRAM, access to AMD FSR, pretty decent ray tracing performance, and a good power to efficiency ratio, and all around it's a great card. And when paired with that Ryzen 5 processor, you're set. You don't need any more than this $1,000 gaming PC, really, for most 1440p games. Maybe you can get a slightly faster graphics card, but I don't think you should be complaining. This is pretty excellent. And just to prove my point, if we go ahead and switch these settings to just ultra settings, no ray tracing, what do we get now? 100, wait. Oh, the same? No, we got a little bit more. Now we're in the 70s, whereas before we were in the 60s. With that, I think let's go ahead and close out the benchmarks and the video. Okay, so I've got the desk raised up a little bit because, this is quite the petite machine. It's pretty small and compact, but overall, there's one thing I don't like about it, which I'll tell you guys, but as far as the actual performance, the parts, and all of that, the CPU and GPU combo in this build, the Ryzen 5 7600 or 7600X, paired with the 6700 XT, is going to chomp through a lot of stuff at 1440p. Also, I just want to show this to you guys, but anytime I talk, and this is a cool thing about this case, there's actually this active voice or decibel reader built into the PC case that will react to anything you say. Now it's green, and I think you can change the color of it if I press the reset button, but I don't want to do that right now because I'm currently transferring files. But back to the conclusions. So for you guys who wanted to know the CPU and GPU temperatures after performing the benchmark sections, I know you guys have been requesting that. The GPU maxed out at 76 degrees Celsius and the CPU maxed out at 59 degrees Celsius. So I think that's passing, very much passing for both the CPU and the GPU. Now, disclaimer, I did kind of go a little bit all out on the aesthetics of this build, but I kind of felt that I had to because in this style of PC case, you just kind of gotta go for it. With the AIO and the sleeved power cables, had to do that. But for those of you who don't have as much budget but still want to build a $1,000 PC build, you're gonna have to stick with the stock cooler that comes with a Ryzen 5 7600, but definitely get 2 case fans right here to exhaust any hot air that comes with your system. But I think the most optimal cooling setup is probably gonna have to be this AIO here on top with your CPU and 2 fans on the side. At least it helps so that this case is very perforated. Pretty much every solid panel on this case, including the backside panel, is perforated with mesh. So this case, even though it looks like it doesn't have airflow, it should be able to breathe nonetheless. And the last thing I want to point out is that if you do decide to go this route for this kind of a $1,000 build with this cube dual glass chamber, cable managing on the back can be troublesome if you don't have a semi-modular power supply, which I went with a non-modular power supply. You can get away with using one in this case because you can actually just squish all of those power cables right where there would be a 3.5 inch or 2.5 inch SATA SSD or hard drive. But if you don't have any of that, then it's just extra cable management room and it looks a little bit better, but still, I would prefer you go with a modular power supply if you're gonna build this PC case, which could cost you an extra $20 to $30. So I guess if you didn't want to go full in on the aesthetics and just wanted a traditional ATX or micro ATX tower with a traditional cooler like an Air one, this would absolutely be a probably sub $1,000 gaming PC. But with the aesthetics, the AIO, and the power sleeve cables, it comes out to about $1,025. Still though, everything I'm showing you in this PC build video can be found in the description below if you want to check out any of these components for yourself, if you want to replicate this build, or maybe build one that is inspired off of it. And if you've enjoyed this video, please, 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 please give it a like. That helps out. It does. It actually does. So give it a like if you've enjoyed it, and if you also enjoy my style of commentary, then you might want to subscribe because most of my videos are going to be like this, and if you dig how I talk, then yeah, you should stay aboard. So with all of that said, thank you so much for watching, and this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.